Procedures for landing gear, wheel, and brake change are basically the same on all DC-10 series aircraft. Brakes and wheels for the main and center landing gear are interchangeable. However, the spacer between the wheel and brake is not. Let's briefly look over the tools and equipment to be used in this demonstration. Suitable axle jack for the series 30 or 40, wheel and tire sling or suitable handling fixture, brake handling adapter, a brake guide bushing and axle thread protector, length of heavy cord, approved lubricants, an axle nut torque adapter, a 1 to 500 foot-pound and a 1 to 500 inch-pound torque wrench, clean, dry wiping cloths, a tire deflator, heavy paper or plastic, and tape for attaching it, plus normal flight line tools. Aircraft preparation includes chocking all wheels which are not to be removed, verifying that all landing gear downlock pins are in place, and static grounding of the aircraft. Check the position of the parking brake lever. Brakes should be on for removal of the wheel and tire and off for brake removal. With the jack correctly in place, lift the wheel to be removed high enough to provide a ground clearance of 2 inches or 5 centimeters with the wheel and tire or brake handling fixture installed. As a safety precaution, deflate the tire to be removed to a safe level for handling. With the tire deflated, remove the quick release clamp and remove the hubcap. Take out and inspect the O-ring and keep all removed parts clean and free from contamination. Now position the wheel and tire handling fixture adjust it to carry the weight of the wheel and tire and attach the safety chain or strap. Remove the safety lock nut, lock washer, and safety lock bolt from the axle nut. With the axle nut torque adapter, loosen the axle nut and spin it off by hand. Slide the keyed washer off the axle. With the thread protector installed, remove the wheel and tire assembly from the axle, using care not to damage the axle sleeve. Be prepared for a weight of approximately 533 pounds or 242 kilograms when removed. Normally, the inner and outer bearing assemblies will be retained by the bearing seals and remain with the wheel assembly as it is removed. If the inner bearing cone should seize on the axle, the bearing seal will deflect over it to allow wheel removal. The bearing cone can be removed later with a suitable puller. If this should be necessary, carefully inspect the axle and sleeve for damage, such as galling, gouges, or tool marks. Always tape heavy paper or plastic over both wheel hub openings to protect the bearings from dirt and moisture. Before continuing with the removal of the brake assembly, the circuit breakers for the brake temperature monitor and the brake temperature monitor indicator should be opened, safetied, and tagged. Remove the wheel spacer from the axle and install the bushing guide and thread protector. Disconnect and cap the brake temperature sensor electrical connector. Depress the spring-loaded lock ring on both wheel brake lower coupling halves and disconnect the brake hoses from the brake. The quick disconnects prevent fluid loss. Wrap the ends of the hoses with clean cloth or plastic to keep them free of contamination. Now remove the compensating link lock nut, washer, and safety bolt. And remove the link attaching bolt and nut. The brake assembly is now free to rotate on the axle. To avoid injury to personnel or damage to the aircraft, tie the compensating link to the strut. If the brake is not to be removed immediately, also tie it securely. Install the handling fixture to support the brake and slide the assembly off the axle. Be prepared for a weight of approximately 460 pounds or 209 kilograms. Remove the brake temperature sensor, if required for installation on the new brake assembly. This concludes the removal of the main landing gear brake assembly. With the new brake assembly in the handling fixture, carefully inspect its condition. Check the compensating link attachment bushings, brake wear indicator positions, and bleed valve fitting installation. These ports are for bleeding when required. The brake assembly is normally bled in the shop prior to installation. Also check the condition of the hydraulic couplings. If applicable, carefully install the temperature sensor in the brake housing and safety it securely. With a clean, dry cloth, thoroughly clean all mating parts, such as the brake bearing surfaces, compensating link bushing, compensating link attaching bolt, and brake link bushing. Grease the brake bearing surfaces with approved lubricant. Consult your maintenance manual for the latest specified grease. Now, carefully align the brake handling fixture with the axle and work the brake over the protective guide bushing and onto the axle. Untie the compensating link and lubricate the link, brake link bushing, and link attaching bolt with approved grease specified in the maintenance manual. Then position the compensating link in the torque clevis of the brake while rotating the brake for correct alignment. Replace the bolt with its head toward the brake and threads pointing toward the center of the truck. Tighten the nut to the torque value specified in your manual. Lock it with locking bolt, washer, and nut. Remove the axle thread protector and guide bushing and with approved lubricant, service the grease fittings on the compensating link the inboard and outboard brake bushing, and the remaining exposed axle. Install the correct wheel spacer. Connect the electrical connector to the temperature sensor and safety. Check the brake hoses for identification and correctly attach them to the brake couplings. Position verification can be made from a placard on the landing gear strut. Hand tighten the couplings and check for full engagement of the lock ring. Before proceeding, make a general visual inspection of the new tire and wheel assembly. Look for cuts, deep abrasions, and flat spots. Check the general condition of the wheel rims. Remove the cover from the bearing and inspect the inner bearing and seal installation and condition. Observe the fuse plugs in the inner wheel half and the balance weights. Then check the condition of the outboard bearing. And the condition of the pressure relief plug Teflon cover. If damaged or missing, further inspection of the inner rupture disc is necessary. With the axle thread protector installed, align the new wheel with the axle and work it onto the brake, aligning the brake disc, key slots, and wheel drive keys as required. Use caution during installation to prevent damage to the heat shields. Lift the last disc into place to complete the alignment. After removing the thread protector from the axle, grease the threads, nut, and washer with the lubricant specified in your maintenance manual. Install the washer and nut. You can now safely remove the wheel handling fixture and, while manually rotating the wheel, torque the axle nut to the initial value specified in your manual. Back off to 0 torque, and retorque to the final value specified in the maintenance manual. Advance the axle nut to the nearest locking position Then install the lock bolt, washer, and nut. Lubricate the hubcap O-ring with the same grease and position it in the groove on the hubcap. Inspect the anti-skid transducer for physical damage. Carefully align the hubcap drive with the transducer, install it, and secure with the quick disconnect clamp. Using a calibrated service gauge, inflate the tire to its recommended pressure and cap it securely. The jack may now be lowered and removed. Make certain that all flight controls are neutral or in the retracted position, and all control surfaces are clear of obstructions. This includes flaps, slats, spoilers, ailerons, elevators, and rudders. The landing gear control lever must be in the down position and the landing gear safety lock pins installed. Now, with APU or external electrical power on, pressurize hydraulic system 3 by momentarily moving auxiliary pump switch number 1 or 2 to the start position and observe system 3 pressure in the normal band. Then pressurize number 1 hydraulic system by turning on the 1-3 pump switch and observing system 1 pressure in the normal band. Both brake system gauges should indicate 2,700 to 3,000 psi. As an alternate technique, number 3 hydraulic system can be pressurized by ground service unit and then number 1 system using the 1-3 pump. Depress the brake pedals and hold for 1 minute. Observe movement of the wear indicator pins when the brake pressure is applied and inspect for leakage at the quick disconnect couplings and brake assembly. Next, on the flight engineer's lower main circuit breaker panel, close the brake temperature monitor and brake temperature monitor indicator circuit breakers. Locate the brake temperature unit on the flight engineer's upper panel and check the brake temperature sensor by observing the temperature meter indication. Next, press the test button. All overheat switch lights should come on and the indicator reading should be in the banded range between 425 and 475 degrees. Release the test button. This completes the wheel brake temperature sensor test. If no other maintenance is to be performed and the aircraft is ready for flight, set the parking brakes, turn off hydraulic and electrical power, and remove the chocks. Remove and stow the static ground cable and remove downlock pins. This completes removal and installation of the main landing gear, wheel and tire and brake assemblies on the DC-10, Series 30 and 40. Although the basic operations demonstrated also apply to the Series 30 or 40 centerline landing gear, differences do exist. The primary difference is in raising the wheel and tire assembly to a height with sufficient ground clearance for removal. With all downlock safety pins and ground cable installed, main gear tires chocked, and parking brakes off, the center gear strut must be depressurized before attempting to raise the wheels. Remove the cap from the fill bleed valve and loosen the swivel nut slowly to regulate pressure release. If released too quickly, fluid loss will result, requiring reservicing. When pressure is depleted, open the swivel nut to the full open position. After the strut is completely depressurized, there are 3 procedures that can be utilized to raise the wheels off the ramp. The standard procedure utilizes the center landing gear jacking fixture to compress the strut piston into the cylinder. Position the hoist support on the strut and install the support pin through the hollow upper torque link bolt, securing it with the safety pin. Place the support hanger around the strut cylinder and secure it to the hoist support with quick release pins. Install the shackle on the strut piston at the lower torque links and attach the hoist assembly between the support and the shackle. Now, operate the hoist until the required distance between tires and ramp is obtained. Normally, a clearance of approximately 2 inches or 5 centimeters will be sufficient to accommodate most wheel and tire or brake handling fixtures. Reverse the procedures to lower the strut piston. Alternate procedure number 1 is used when the jacking fixture is not available. This technique involves partially retracting the centerline gear to a height suitable for maintenance action. Remove the center landing gear downlock pin. All other safety precautions listed for the standard procedure apply. Remember, the center gear strut must be depressurized. Several preparation steps must be accomplished in the flight compartment. Verify the landing gear control handle is in the down position and install a warning tag. Remove the safety lock pin and place the centerline gear control switch in the up position. Reinstall the pin. Now, with APU or external electrical power on, Pressurize hydraulic system 3 by momentarily moving auxiliary pump switches 1 and 2 to the start position. In the right main gear wheel well, open the landing gear door with the maintenance control handle. Install the door open safety lock on the actuating cylinder. After gaining access to the right wheel well, the center gear control valve is used to retract the gear. Observation of the gear operation can be checked through the viewing cutout. After making certain the centerline gear area is clear of equipment and personnel, press the lock release button on the control valve handle and move to the up position. When the gear has moved to a suitable height, place a block under the tire, which is not to be removed. Release the control valve to its spring-loaded neutral position. At the flight engineer's station, shut down the hydraulic power. The center gear will slowly extend until the tire contacts the block, leaving sufficient clearance under the opposite wheel and tire for required maintenance. As noted earlier, procedures for wheel and brake change are basically the same. Brakes and wheels for the main and center landing gear are interchangeable. However, the spacer between the brake and wheel is not. Here we can see the difference. The wide unit is for main gear installation. The narrow one for the centerline gear. Do not interchange these spacers. Another difference to consider during brake replacement is its position on the axle. Due to the strut angle, the brake is rotated, which relocates the bleed ports and hydraulic couplings. A placard identifying these units is located on the left gear door. To check brake hoses for identification and correct attachment, verify their position from placards attached to the strut. After required maintenance has been performed, using maintenance manual instructions, the centerline gear can be extended, locked down, and serviced. Repressurize System 3 using the auxiliary hydraulic pumps. After verifying the center gear area is clear, use the control valve in the right wheel well to raise the gear enough to remove the block from under the wheel and tire. Then, place the valve handle in the down position until the gear is fully down and locked. Finally, install the downlock pin. Remaining steps to be accomplished are remove the safety lock and close the landing gear door. Verify the landing gear control handle is down and remove the warning tag. Move the centerline gear control switch to its normal position and secure it with the safety lock pin and shut down System 3 hydraulic pressure. It is now necessary to repressurize the center gear shock strut using a suitable source of high-pressure dry nitrogen. Check the strut to assure that no hydraulic leaks are evident. If hydraulic fluid loss is indicated, further maintenance may be required. Connect the nitrogen pressure gauge and inflation hose to the filler valve and regulate the flow to slowly inflate the strut. Note, the permanently mounted gauge adjacent to the filler valve is used only for quick check reference. Do not use for strut inflation procedures. Continue inflating the strut until dimension X and the service hose pressure gauge reading intersect within the acceptable pressure band on the servicing placard. When the correct measurement has been obtained, tighten the filler valve swivel nut to the proper torque. Disconnect the service hose and pressure gauge and install the filler valve cap. The strut is now correctly serviced for any authorized gross weight and CG position. The following procedure can be used to replace the wheel, tire, and brake assembly on the centerline gear without deflating the strut assembly when the aircraft is on level ground and both tires are inflated to normal operating pressure. The airplane gross weight must not exceed 500,000 pounds or 226,757 kilos. Check, and if required, service both centerline tires to specification. Position the jack under the jack pad at the bottom of the centerline axle. Next, measure and record the distance between the ground surface and jack pad or other accessible reference point on the axle or brake assembly. Raise the jack as necessary to remove the wheel and tire assembly. Jack extension must not exceed 3 inches or 1.18 centimeters to prevent possible injury to personnel or damage to the aircraft. Additional removal procedures for a centerline wheel, tire, and brake assembly are the same as for the main landing gear. This concludes the DC-10 main and center landing gear wheel and brake removal and installation procedure.